Hey guys, Shio here. Welcome to my shiny only playthrough of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, well mainly Scarlet. Here are the rules for the playthrough. I must catch at least 6 shinies before the end of the story, aka the fight against Professor Sada. The shiny rate in this game is 1 in 4096, that's full odds, without the shiny charm, and since we're not going to be using the shiny charm, we're going to be spending quite a while shiny hunting. I do find in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet it's faster to shiny hunt because compared to older games, in this game the shinies show up in the overworld. So without further ado, let's begin this shiny only playthrough. Starting out within the playthrough, we decide to our name, so obviously it's going to be Ash Ketchup, the most delicious name in all of Pokemon. After the director of the Pokemon Academy, Director Clavel, visits our house, we go through a little bit of story to decide our first Pokemon. But since the starters in this game are shiny locked, we will be shiny hunting when we can. So after we pick our first starter, the Fire Croc Pokemon, we then get into a first battle with our new rival, Nemona. We quickly destroy her because we have the type advantage, and then after the battle, we do a bit more story. We finally get to Poco Path, the first area where Pokemon spawn in the game. And in this area, the grassland, since we don't have access to the beach yet, we have access to 6 Pokemon: Lechonk, Tarantula, I think that's how you say the name, Hoppip, Pawmi, Fletchling, and Scatterbug. All decent Pokemon, but the main 3 I would like to have is either Lechonk, Pawmi, or Fletchling. Lechonk mainly because I can clickbait my thumbnail with a shiny Lechonk, Pawmi because shiny Pawmi looks amazing, and then Fletchling because Talonflame is overall a great damage dealer early on, and a good speedster. So after our first encounter with the Lechonk on Poco Path, we begin shiny hunting. It took me around 5 hours, but I finally found one. Shiny! Shiny Fletch Finder! Shiny!
You got your shiny? You got it, bro?
Yeah, look at stream.
Hey, let's go. Shio gets his first shiny in the shiny playthrough. Go, dude. That's clutch.
So after catching it, I began leveling up to level 10 before moving forward. After getting Fletchling to level 10, we then walk up to the lighthouse where we find a new friend in the character Arven, who is the owner of this mysterious Pokemon who we find out is Koraidon. This fight is extremely easy because all he brings out is Scovet level 5 and we're at level 10, so we are extremely prepared for this fight, and we wipe the floor with Arven, getting Koraidon's Pokeball from him. After that, we make our way through the South Province Area 1. I pretty much fought all the trainers here for as much EXP as possible before we get into our next fight with none other than our rival Nemona. This fight is a pain because we do have the type advantage still on her starter Pokemon. But she has a secret weapon now in Pawmi, which is electric type, and our Fletchling is normal flying, so she has a type advantage on us now with Pawmi versus Fletchling. So we pretty much go through the whole fight taking out Sprigatito with Ember and a Peck. I should have checked beforehand before this fight, but Fletchling is adamant nature, giving him a boost to attack at the cost of decreasing his special attack. So a Peck would have done more damage than an Ember because Ember's attack is decreased because of the special attack decrease. But the second she brought out Pawmi, she Terra Lightning and took us out in 2 Thundershocks. But thankfully this continues the story. So you can lose this fight and still progress, so we make our way through the school, we get into a fight with a Team Stargrunt and we defeat them with ease before our second fight. Nemona comes into the picture and gives us a Terra Orb. So we can now Terra our Pokemon, so we quickly wash the floor with the second Team Stargrunt with our Terra normal Fletchling. But after that, we go through some story throughout the school introducing us to the 3 quest lines to progress the main story of the game. Questline 1 being the gyms with Nemona, Questline 2 being the Titans with Arven, and Questline 3 being the Team Star bases with Cassiopeia. We can do these in any order, so I decided to go west so I can quickly get the bug gym out of the way so I can start shiny hunting another Pokemon. But as we go west, I finish up all the trainers in the area for any extra EXP. I do a couple raids for some EXP candies that were quite easy because they were 1-star raids or 2-star raids. And after making our way to the gym, I give the EXP candies to Fletchling to evolve into Fletch Finder before the fight.
Kind of not something you don't say, but then, I wonder who that could be.
After we get to the first gym and do the bean rolling challenge, we get into a battle with the first gym leader, Katie, who uses bug types. This is her team right here. As she brings out her level 14 Nimble, we use Flame Charge. I think I should have used Peck here because it was raining, but we still take out the Nimble in 2 hits. She then brings out Tarantula, I think that's how you say the name. We get a critical hit with Peck, which takes it out in 1 hit. She then brings out her Bug Terror Teddy Ursa and tears it right off the bat. I then use Peck on it, which brings it down to orange health, and Teddy Ursa uses Fury Swipes on me, activating my Flame Body and giving itself burn. Chicken then finishes him off with 1 more Peck, sealing the win in the first badge, the Bug Badge. Now we make our way to West Province Area 1. This area we will be shiny hunting because there is one Pokemon I really want here, which is Mankey. But these are the Pokemon we can find here that I'm going to shiny hunt in. Capsakid, Mankey, Phanpy, Mudbray, Skiddo, Nimble, and Rockruff, and during the night we can run into Ghastlies. But this shiny hunt took around 4 hours to do, and we ended up finding Mankey! Shiny Mankey! This is pretty much the best Pokemon we can get here, because when we evolve it into Annihilape, it's going to do amazing damage. Not only does Annihilape look amazing, Mankey's evolution line is one of my favorite Pokemon evolution lines. Yes, I'm stale like that, I like the look of Mankey and Primeape and Annihilape. Looks awesome, but Annihilape is a great damage dealer for my team, so now I don't have to worry about not having a heavy hitter from here on out. But as we catch the shiny Mankey, we call it Monkey, because I think it's the perfect name for Mankey. But after that, we make our way to the Open Sky Titan, Bombardier. I end up failing this hardcore because I didn't use Acrobatics. I thought Flame Charge would do more damage. So I ended up failing this first encounter. When doing it the second time though, I do end up using Acrobatics twice, taking it out, getting into a fight with it with Arven. Now that we are in the Herba Mystica phase of the fight, I use Acrobatics twice again and take out the Bombardier, getting our first Herba Mystica badge complete. After each Titan, Arven will make a sandwich for you and Koraidon, and it will give a buff to Koraidon in the overworld since Koraidon's our mount. It'll give him a buff such as, or regain his powers such as gliding, sprinting, swimming on water, etc. So this is the good thing about having doing these Titans, is it will give you the ability to float on water or glide in the sky. But after we complete the Open Sky Titan, we get the ability to float on water with Koraidon now. I then make my way to the Stony Cliff Titan, which is a giant cloth. I'm sorry, but my capture card seemed to have malfunctioned here while I was streaming, so I couldn't record the fight. But I do remember the buff we get from the Herba Mystica, which is the ability to sprint. But after claiming the Stony Cliff Titan badge, we make our way to the Artisan Gym, which is the grass gym. The test here is we need to gather a bunch of Sunflowers around the city and bring it back to a spot in the city when we have them. After completing the test, we get into a fight with the grass gym leader, Brassius, who starts out with a Petilil, or Petit, I don't even know how to pronounce these names. We use Acrobatics on it and get a critical hit to knock it out in one shot. Brassius then brings out a Smoliv, who we use Acrobatics again to just one-shot it. He then brings out his 8th Pokemon, a Grass Terra Sudowoodo, who we couldn't one-shot with Acrobatics, and luckily we dodged a Rock Throw and finished him off with one more Acrobatics, sealing the victory and getting the Grass Gym badge from Brassius. After the Grass Gym, we make our way to the Team Starbase Fire, where after disposing of the guard there, I then find out I need 3 Pokemon to challenge this Team Starbase. To begin with, so time to start shiny hunting again. So I decided to shiny hunt on the East Paldea Sea. The Pokemon you get here are Wattrel, Bruckish, Gyarados, Magikarp, Luvdisc, Arrokuda, Quillfish, and Marini. Since I already have 2 really good physical damage dealers, I would prefer a Wattrel or a Marini. If I remember correctly, you can build Wattrel with special attack damaging moves, and Marini just to use as a staller. The main Pokemon I would not want to get here is a Luvdisc. Luvdisc is just a horrible Pokemon and does no damage. I would not want this Pokemon on my team for this playthrough. This shiny hunt took around an hour. I got really lucky, Here I found a shiny Marini, which later I can evolve into a Toxapex and just cheese battles with Baneful Bunker. Now we have 3 Pokemon. We can now challenge the Team Star bases, so we first start out with the Firebase, which is Mela. As we start the little task of defeating 30 Pokemon while in the base, we finish it off with ease and then start the fight with Mela. She has 2 Pokemon and her starting Pokemon is a Torkoal. All I do here is spam acrobatics with Chicken with my Fletch Finder as he tanks the Flame Wheels that Torkoal spams. It only takes around 4 acrobatics to finish off the Torkoal, then we go into her main Pokemon, the Starmobile, aka the Reveroom. Reveroom uses Overheat, taking out my low health Fletch Finder, so I go into Mankey and then Terra him to do extra fighting damage with Cross Chop. And next turn I revive Fletch Finder because Mankey just can't tank any of these hits. I pretty much just spam potions here to get past the damage the Starmobile is doing to me on Fletch Finder, and after around 7 turns I KO the Starmobile using acrobatics, defeating Mela and getting the Fire Badge from Team Star. Now that we're done with Mela, we go to the Team Star Dark Base where Giacomo is, but before that we meet a friendly face in Clive, the Quaxley man himself, Quack Quack. I know I could have introduced him earlier, but I felt like this is a better introduction area for him. But after that we head up to the Team Star Dark Base and start the assessment of defeating 30 Pokemon. Giacomo is far easier than Mela because Giacomo is 6 levels lower than Mela, so this fight we're going to have should be fast. So after defeating 30 Pokemon, we get into a fight with Giacomo himself, who has a Goku-style hairstyle. He starts out with Pawniard, a super effective Flame Charge from Chicken takes it out in 1 hit. So now he brings out the Sejin Starmobile, which is the Reveroom, where I just spam a bunch of acrobatics on it until Chicken the Fletch Finder faints. Then I bring in Monkey the Mankey, where our 1 super effective Cross Chop seals the win against Giacomo, giving us the Team Star Dark Badge. After some more exploring around in terror battles, we end up leveling up Mankey to level 30 by feeding him a bunch of candy and he evolves into Primeape. Woohoo! That's 1 step closer to Annihilate! Annihilation time! Pretty much with the Quaking Titan of Earth, I didn't realize how strong it was. I went and did it right off the bat, right after leveling up Mankey evolving Mankey into Primeape. I didn't realize how low of a level I was for that fight, because you're supposed to be around level 42 to 45 for that fight, and I was only like in my early 30s for my levels. So I did end up beating the first phase of the fight with Fletch Finder because the Great Tusk ended up getting burned from my Flame Body from my Fletch Finder, so I just whittled him down with potions as he was burned. But on the second phase of the fight, I couldn't do that much because he just kept on one-shotting all my Pokemon. So I ended up not doing the second phase of the fight. Well, ended up failing the second phase of the fight, where he has the Herba Mystica buff. So I went back to the Water Gym, did the Water Gym test by giving Old Man Kofu his wallet back at the town over, and buying that a very expensive seaweed for him, where I outbid some expert bidders who didn't want to go past 40k. But when we got back to the gym, we got into a fight with Nimona again when we entered the gym reception area. Defeating Nimona and leveling up Primeape to level 35 and getting Rage Fist. The good thing about Rage Fist is this is an evolution requirement. By using Rage Fist 20 times without healing at a Pokemon Center, it evolves Primeape into Annihilate when you level him up. After the fight with Nimona, we get into a fight with Kofu, the Water-type Gym Leader. Kofu has 3 Pokemon and starts out with Veluza. We start out with Primeape and use Assurance on Veluza, bringing it down to below half health, but it retaliates with Pluck, bringing our health down to around 60%. We seal the kill with 1 more Assurance, and Kofu brings out his Rug Trio. I Terra my Primeape and use a Cross Chop and try and one-shot the Rug Trio, and lo and behold, it hits and it does one-shot. Now Kofu goes into his ace Pokemon, Crabominable, which is a Terra-type water. Kofu immediately Terras, and we thankfully outspeed with a critical hit Cross Chop to one-shot the Crabominable and seal the win. Fletch Finder after the battle gets some EXP to evolve into Talonflame, and we get the Water Gym badge from Kofu. After defeating Kofu, I do some more exploring around and end up in Levincia, where the electric type gym leader Lono is. Our gym test is to find Director Clavel, like in one of those old Where's Wally books. After finding Clavel 3 times, we finally get to challenge the gym leader Lono. Her team consists of Watchwell, Bellybolt, Luxio, and a Terra Lightning Mismagius. She starts out with Watchwell, we take it out with 1 assurance. She then brings out Bellybolt, which dies to a super effective Earthquake. Now she sends out Luxio, which cuts our attack in half with Intimidate, but nonetheless, 1 Earthquake seals the kill, and now she brings out her ace Pokemon, Mismagius, who immediately Terra Lightnings. We use an assurance on it, but it retaliates with a Confuse Ray, but gladly, we don't hit ourselves next turn, as we use another assurance. Primeape then snaps out of confusion, and we hit Mismagius one more time with assurance, gaining the win and the Lightning Gym Badge. This is probably when I should start my next shiny hunt, but luckily, as we sprint into the East Province area too, we run into a pack of Q-Fans, with one of them being shiny. I was shocked because Copperjaw being very powerful, Q-Fan will make a great attacker for us when he evolves into Copperjaw. So I end up calling him Tank Engine because he's literally a tank. Now after gaining our new ally, we make our way to the lurking Steel Titan Orthworm.
I saw it! It was big! It was all wiggly! And it ate everything!
That's horrible!
It was an Alaskan bullworm!
Had to put that meme there, it was just too perfect. But when we get into our first fight with it, 1 cross chop seals us the win, so the Orthworm runs away. We chase it down with Arven meeting up with us with a Toadstool. In the second fight we start out with a cross chop bringing it down to orange health, and then the Titan retaliates with a Sandstorm, and our partner uses a Supersonic confusing the Alaskan Bullworm. 1 more cross chop seals us the win, and now we get our next Herba Mystica for Koraidon, the salty Herba Mystica, which gives him the ability to jump higher. I now make my way to the Team Star Poison Base where Atticus is. We quickly take care of the guard with Primeape and his Earthquakes. We make our way into the base, defeating 30 Pokemon with ease to get our challenge against the leader himself, Atticus. This guy specializes in Poison-type Pokemon and starts out with a Skuntank, and we start out with a Primeape, and we use a super effective Earthquake to take it out in 1 hit. Atticus then brings out Muck, who survives on a sliver of HP after a super effective Earthquake hits. He then uses a Sludge Wave on us, but after another Earthquake seals us the kill. Then he brings out Reverum, just a regular old Reverum, not the Starmobile yet. This is another quick kill with a 1 Earthquake. Now it's time for the Navy Starmobile. All it takes is 4 Earthquakes to defeat this Starmobile, snagging us the win and defeating Atticus, earning us the Poison Badge. I then head to Dalipaza Passage to grind some EXP, and we gain some levels for Marini, and Marini finally evolves into Toxapex, gaining the move Baneful Bunker, which will be great for stalling out fights. We then head to Medali, where the normal type gym leader is. This gym test makes you go around defeating other trainers who have clues to what the special menu item is, and we must order said special menu item to challenge the gym leader. After some Sherlock Holmes level deducting or deducing, and totally not because I beat the game already, and this isn't my second playthrough or anything, I've deducted the right answer to now fight the handsome man himself, Larry. No, not that Larry. Yes, that Larry. This guy specializes in normal type Pokemon. He starts out with Komala, and I always start out with my Primeape. I used 2 Earthquakes here. I should have used Close Combat to one-shot it, don't know why I didn't. But then he sends in Dunsparce, which eats a nice healthy Close Combat to the face, so he then brings out his 3rd and final Pokemon, Staraptor. I bring out Tank Engine, my Copperajah, to give him some screen time. I use Stomp first turn to see how much damage it would do. Then next turn I did a critical hit Heavy Slam to get the win, getting the normal type gym badge. Now that I'm a high enough level, I go back to the Quaking Earth Titan and fight it. It was a pretty easy fight, all I did was spam acrobatics the whole time. It took around 8 turns to defeat it, gaining the Quaking Earth badge and unlocking the ability to glide now with Koraidon. I then head to Porto Marinada to evolve my Primeape into Annihilape. To evolve Primeape, you gotta use Rage Fist 20 times without going to a Pokemon Center before you level up. I do the task and Primeape finally evolves into the amazing Annihilape! It wants to learn Shadow Punch, but I keep Rage Fist because I find Rage Fist much more nicer. I then make my way to Glaciado Gym, where we're gonna smoke this gym leader. So after going to Glaciado, I don't even know how to pronounce it, and doing the gym test, we get into a fight with the gym leader Grusha. Grusha starts out with a Frostmoth and I start out with a Talonflame. A quick flame charge one-shots the Frostmoth and Grusha then sends out Setatan, which is a tank. It eats my flame charge and in return does some heavy damage to me with liquidation. I use flame charge again to bring it down to half health, and after one more liquidation I end up using a hyper potion to heal up my Talonflame back to full health. 2 more flame charges seals the feint, and Grusha then sends in his Bear Tick, and a single flame charge brings it down to half HP, so it returns with Icicle Crash to destroy my Talonflame, so I send out Annihilape. I then use Earthquake with it, living on a sliver of HP, and it uses Icicle Crash on me, doing 70 damage to me. I then finish it off with one more Earthquake, then Grusha sends in his ace Pokemon, Altaria. We both Terra, and I thankfully outspeeded and defeated with a Terra boosted close combat, gaining the W, in defeating Grusha and earning the Ice Gym badge. We're now at Montinerva, where the Ghost type gym leader Rhyme is. We quickly go through the gym test, which is just a bunch of double battles. Then we get into a rap battle against Rhyme. Just kidding, it's a Pokemon battle. I do like this gym leader just for the fact that she's a rapper, makes it much more entertaining as a character, but I will be honest, text rap doesn't hit that well and it feels cringy, but I guess that's why I like it. But I will do the rapping for this part because I quite like the verses. Get ready. Listen up, Rhyme, your reign ends here. You're about to get run up by this pro cashier. Well, I'm about to check out. Must got your rhymes on deep discount. I do apologize for my horrible rapping. I just love the verses too much to not give them life. Okay, unlike the last gym leaders, Rhyme is a doubles battle. We start out with Annihilape and Talonflame, and she starts out with Mimikyu and Banette. Mimikyu Shadow Sneaks into Annihilape, doing some decent damage, but not a lot. Then Banette Sucker Punches into Talonflame. I then retaliate with Talonflame using acrobatics! Since when can Talonflame learn close combat? Into Mimikyu, getting rid of Mimikyu's disguise, and Rage Fist into Banette to one-shot Banette with Annihilape. Mimikyu then Shadow Sneaks again into my Annihilape, bringing him down to almost half health, but I return by putting both attacks into the recently brought out Houndstone to defeat the Houndstone. Rhyme then sends out her ace Pokemon Toxtricity, which is Terra Ghost. So a super effective Rage Fist ends up one-shotting the Toxtricity, and we then use an Acrobatics on Mimikyu, bringing it down to red health. Time to start shiny hunting again. I head up to the area right next to Glaciado Gym to start shiny hunting. There's a wider range of Pokemon that can spawn here, so much it would probably fill up the screen, so I'll just make this one fast. I end up spending a good hour and a half here, luckily getting Citadel, a really good Ice-type Pokemon, not the best, but still a nice looking shiny, so me and my creative self, I named it Iron Butt! Cause why not? It's a nice looking shiny, not gonna lie, I like the iron look it has, and it's a really good tank with its high HP stat. Now we're heading to Team Star's Fairy Base, where their leader Ortega is. We quickly defeat the 30 Pokemon to fight Ortega himself. This is his team, and he starts out with Azura, and we start out with Copperajah. Azura outspeeds Copperajah and lands an Aqua Tail, dealing some decent damage, but we use Iron Head, bringing it down to half HP. They use Aqua Tail again, but misses, and we finish Azura off with one more Iron Head. Ortega then brings out Dash Bun, one Iron Head takes it out. Ortega then brings out his third Pokemon, Wigglytuff, which uses a play rough on us, but we survive and we counter with an Iron Head to one-shot it. Now it's time to fight the Starmobile. I tear a Copperjaw into Terra Steel to boost the damage of Iron Head, and we end up two-shotting the Starmobile and defeating Ortega, gaining the Fairy Badge. As I explore more of the map, I end up heading to the last Team Starbase on the map where Aerie is, who specializes in fighting-type Pokemon. We walk up to the base to find Aerie herself guarding the base. It's time for a wrestling match! After she runs off inside, we get into a fight with the guard, quickly defeating the guard, and now we're ready to defeat 30 Pokemon again. Woohoo! After defeating the 30 Pokemon, we get into a fight with Aerie. This is her team. Aerie starts out with a Toxicroak, and I start out with an Annihilate. Toxicroak ends up using Sucker Punch on us, dealing around 30 damage, but I retaliate with a super effective Earthquake. Aerie then brings out Annihilate, and I switch into Talonflame. We end up using Acrobatics, bringing Annihilate down to half HP, and Annihilate uses Close Combat on us, reducing its defensive stats and dealing a bit of damage to Talonflame. But one more Acrobatics finishes off the Annihilate, and now it's for Aerie's third Pokemon, Passimian. We outspeed with a super effective Acrobatics, but Passimian finishes off Talonflame with a super effective Rock Tomb. Rip Chicken. We then bring out Annihilate, who uses 2 Earthquakes to finish it off, and now it's time for Aerie to bring out Lucario. We keep in Annihilate and use a super effective Earthquake to finish off the Lucario in one hit. Now we're facing the Starmobile. I Terra Fighting into 3 close combats to bring it down to red health. I then bring out Toxapex to do a liquidation, but it takes us out with 2 high horsepowers. I then bring out Copperjaw to use a play rough to finally finish off the Starmobile, netting me the win against Aerie and finishing the 5th Team Starbase. Now, with all the Starbases down, I now have access to fight Cassiopeia at the school, but I will wait a bit on this. I then head to the last Titan we need to beat, the False Dragon Titan. We find a wild Tatsugiri on a small island and chat to it. A giant Dondozo then comes out of the water and eats it and initiates the fight with us. I start out with my Annihilate and use 2 Outrages right off the bat, bringing down the Dondozo to half HP, and in return getting confused for using Outrage. I then hit myself in confusion afterwards, but the next time I use Close Combat, I successfully use Close Combat to bring it down to red HP and having it run off from the battle. Arven then catches up with us as we find the wild Dondozo eating another Tatsugiri who ate some Herba Mystica. We're now in the buffed up fight versus the Dondozo, where all I do is spam Rage Fist on the Dondozo to defeat it, but after that we get into a fight with the Tatsugiri. 2 super effective outrages finish it off, since Arven's Greedent uses Tail Whip to decrease the defense for me to do more damage. Setatan then gets enough EXP to learn Ice Spinner, a really good ice move, so we forget Avalanche and return learning Ice Spinner for Setatan, aka Iron Butt. After the fight, Arven then makes us the final sandwich and we give it to Koraidon, gaining his final ability, the ability to climb walls and mountains. We then get a call from Professor Sada to go to Sada's lab at the lighthouse. We beat Arven there and to learn that we must go to Area 0 now, but we also must recruit 2 others to help join us. This is where the 2 other quest lines help us, because once we beat them, we get the help of both Nimona, our rival, and the tech whiz herself, Penny. But after we make it out of Professor Sada's lab, we have a fight with Arven himself. He starts out with a Greedent, so a super effective close combat from Annihilate, finish off the Greedent in one hit. Arven then sends out the Scovillian, and we switch out into Annihilate with Talonflame. 2 Acrobatics finishes off the Scovillian. Now Arven sends out Garganical. This Garganical is tanky because it literally eats a super effective close combat from Annihilate, surviving at orange HP, and in return using Earthquake on me, dealing 90 damage. But one more close combat finishes it off. And Arven then brings out Toedscruel. I Terra fighting my Annihilate into immediately getting finished off by a Power Rip from Toedscruel. I did not think it would outspeed me. I didn't realize how fast Toedscruel actually was. I bring out Talonflame and use Acrobatics, and 2 Acrobatics finishes off the Toedscruel. Arven now sends out Cloyster. I then send out Copperajah, use Bulldoze, Strength, Play Rough, and Ironhead before a Hyper Potion on my Talonflame before fainting. I bring out Setatan thinking the Ice Spinner would finish off the Cloyster, but no, it only does an inch of damage. I made a huge misplay by using that, so I then bring out Talonflame after Setatan faints, and finish off the Cloyster with Talonflame. I switch out Talonflame for Toxspec, and Arven then brings out his final Pokemon Mabostiff? Hopefully I said the name correctly. I pretty much just use Baneful Bunker here to poison the Mabostiff, and Potion Heal to stall out so the poison will do tick damage. I'm not proud of what I did, but it works quite well. After some turns, I let Arven take out my Toxspec so I can safely bring in Talonflame to finish off the Mabostiff with Acrobatics. Finishing off the last fight for the Herba Mystica questline, and now it's time to finish off the other 2 questlines before we go to Area 0. I then head to North Province Area 2 for my final shiny hunt. The only shiny Pokemon I hope I don't get here is Cufant or Copperajah, since I already have one. But I spend the next 2 hours shiny hunting, and luckily get a Lokix with my friend in chat named Steve Harvey. I'll be honest, I don't like Lokix. I feel like he's generally a weak Pokemon, so I'm not sure how I'm going to use him through the rest of the playthrough. After that, I make my way to the final gym, the Psychic Gym, where Tulip the gym leader is. After playing the super boring gym test, like seriously, who thought of this? Cough cough, but after that we get into a fight with Tulip, and this is her team. She starts out with a how do you say this? Farigiraf. So I close combat it, one-shotting it. Tulip then brings out Gardevoir, who I made another huge misplay on, and used close combat thinking it was neutral. I really need to learn Pokemon type matchups. But I did half of Gardevoir's health, and I ended up losing Annihilate in the process from a super effective Psychic. I then bring out Talonflame to finish off the Gardevoir with Acrobatics. Tulip then sends out Esparthra, who gets defeated after 2 Acrobatics. And now it's time for her final Pokemon, Florges. Hopefully I said that name correctly. Who gets one shot by a Flare Blitz from Talonflame, getting us the win and our final badge before the Elite Four, the Psychic Badge. After obtaining the final badge to finally fight the Elite Four, I then go to the Elite Four and finish off the test part of the champion assessment. This is pretty much all about memory and what answers you wrote down earlier, or remembering what Pokemon type of gym was, and the name of the gym leader. I don't have great memory, so I just looked up an answer list for this. After successfully completing the interview, we finally get to fight the Elite Four, and our first Elite Four member, Rika, who specializes in ground-type Pokemon. Rika starts out with Whiscash, and I start out with Annihilate. I end up one-shotting the Whiscash with Close Combat. Rika then brings out Camerupt, so I bring out Toxspec. A super effective Liquidation ends up one-shotting the Camerupt with ease. Now it's time for Donphan. I end up making another misplay here by not using Close Combat and using Earthquake, doing little damage. And in return, the Donphan also uses Earthquake. Next turn, I use Close Combat to defeat the Donphan. Dugtrio is up next, so we keep in Annihilate to use Earthquake to one-shot the Dugtrio. Rika now sends out her Clodsire. She immediately Terra Grounds the Clodsire and uses Protect, protecting against the Earthquake. He doesn't use Protect next turn, so the Earthquake hits and does half health. Clodsire returns with their own Earthquake, and I end up finishing it off with a Close Combat. Our next Elite Four fight is against Poppy, who specializes in Steel-type Pokemon. Poppy starts out with a Copperajah, while I start out with an Annihilate. And quick, super effective Close Combat takes out the Annihilate. Takes out the Copperajah in one shot. I then switch out into Talonflame since Poppy is bringing out Corviknight. A single Flare Blitz takes out the Corviknight. The next Pokemon is Magnezone. It has Sturdy, so Flare Blitz only brings it down to 1 HP. Magnezone uses Light Screen, so I finish it off with one more Flare Blitz. I switch into Annihilate as she brings out her Bronzong. I then use Rage Fist on it twice to take out the Bronzong. Now it's time for Poppy's last Pokemon, Tinkaton. She immediately Terra Steals it, so I end up using a super effective Flare Blitz to one-shot it, the Tinkaton, with Talonflame. Our next opponent is the one and only Larry! Yep, that Larry. In the Elite Four, Larry specializes in Flying-type Pokemon and starts out with Trophius. I started with Talonflame this time and one-shot the Trophius with Flare Blitz. I then switch out Talonflame with Setatan. I thought I could tank a close combat from the Staraptor he sent out, but he takes me out before I can use Ice Spinner. I then switch into Annihilate and use a close combat to one-shot the Staraptor. Larry then brings out Altaria, and a super effective Outrage from Annihilate takes out the Altaria out. Oricorio gets sent out and I'm locked into Outrage, so I use another Outrage and return gain Confused. I then hit myself in confusion and die to another Air Slash from Oricorio. I then send out Toxapex, get Teeter Dance, so my Toxapex is now confused, but I hit through the confusion with a Liquidation to finish off the Oricorio. Larry then brings out his final Pokemon, the most creative Pokemon to ever come out of Pokemon itself, you know, up there with Klefki, the one and only Flamigo, or should I say Flamingo. He immediately Terra Flyings it, so I Baneful Bunker to protect against the Brave Bird, in return poisoning the Flamigo. Next turn I use Poison Jab after Flamigo uses another Brave Bird on me, dealing damage to itself with the recoil, the poison, and Poison Jabbing, bringing it down to around 40% health. Flamigo uses another Brave Bird, taking out my Toxapex, but I then switch into Talonflame and finish off the Flamigo with Acrobatics. Now it's time for Hassel, the one who specializes in Dragon types. He starts out with Norvrin, so I start out with Annihilate. Norvrin outspeeds me and uses an Air Slash, but we return the damage with an Outrage, defeating the Norvrin in one hit. Hassel then brings out Flapple, so I send out Iron Butt, aka Setatan. Flapple uses Leech Seed, so I use Ice Spinner to defeat it in one hit. The next Pokemon is now Haxorus, so I send out Annihilate, a single Outrage takes out Haxorus. Up next is Dragaggle. I bring in Iron Butt to use Ice Spinner, and it one-shots. Now it's time for Hassel's final Pokemon, Baxcalibur? So I keep an Iron Butt hoping I can outspeed it, but sadly I couldn't and died to a Terra Dragon Glaive Rush. I bring in Talonflame to do a bit of damage with Flare Blitz, but in return the Glaive Rush from Baxcalibur one-shots my Talonflame. I now bring in Annihilate and use Outrage to finally finish off the Baxcalibur, and now at the final step in defeating the champion, Geeta. We're now fighting the champion! Geeta starts out with an Esparta. I use Acrobatics right off the bat, and Esparta does a Lumina Crash. Next turn I use Flare Blitz to finish it off. Geeta then brings out King Gambit, so I keep in Talonflame to do another Flare Blitz. To one-shot the King Gambit, my Talonflame survives with 8 HP. Geeta then sends out Veluza, so I switch into my Annihilate. 2 Rage Fists finish off the Veluza. Next Pokemon is Gogoat, so I bring in Talonflame to take out the Gogoat with 1 Flare Blitz, in the end fainting both Pokemon. Up next is Avalugg. I bring in Annihilate. Avalugg tanks the close combat and survives on red HP, using Earthquake in return. I then use Rage Fist to finish off the Avalugg. Now Geeta brings in her final Pokemon, Glimmora, which is Terra-type Rock. So I Terra my Annihilate and use a close combat to one-shot the Glimmora, sealing the victory against Geeta. Now it's time to fight Nimona to finish off the Victory Road questline. This is her team for this fight. She starts out with Lycanroc and I start out with an Annihilate. A close combat one-shots the Lycanroc. Nimona then sends out Palmot, so a super effective Earthquake finishes it off in one hit. The Dunsparce is the next Pokemon, so we just use another close combat to one-shot it. The Alaskan Bullworm is then sent out as the next Pokemon, so a super effective close combat finishes it off since it's Steel type. Goodra then gets sent out, so we use Outrage into finishing it off. I then switch out into Talonflame, but Meowscarda outspeeds Talonflame and destroys me with a Thunder Punch. I then bring out Annihilate and use Close Combat. Meowscarda outspeeds me and with a Play Rough and does some decent damage to me. Next turn I do get a Quick Claw off with my Rage Fist, and defeat the Meowscarda, finally finishing off the Victory Road questline and defeating Nemona in the process. As we walk out the door of the school, we find Clive, but shockingly, it's actually Director Clavel! He explains he was Cassiopeia all along and challenges us to a battle. So let the battle begin! Director Clavel starts out with an Oranguru, and I start out with my Annihilate. I use Close Combat and he survives on a sliver of HP. Oranguru then uses Yawn, but since Monkey has Vital Spirit, he isn't affected by it. Next turn I finish off Oranguru with an Earthquake. I switch out into Talonflame as Clavel sends out Poltegeist. I use Flare Blitz into one-shotting the Poltegeist. I then switch out into Toxapex as Clavel brings out Houndoom. Houndoom gets a Dark Pulse off before he faints from a super effective Liquidation. I bring out Talonflame as Abomasnow gets sent out and I quickly feint it with a super effective Flare Blitz. Next Pokemon is Among Us. Among Us? What? So I use Flare Blitz again to one-shot it. I switch out into Annihilate in preparation for the final Pokemon Quaquaval. I use Earthquake to do 40% damage. In return, Quaquaval uses Aqua Step. I survive the Aqua Step, and in return I finish off Quaquaval with Close Combat during finishing off the fight. Director Clavel then tells us he isn't Cassiopeia, so we head to the schoolyard at midnight to fight the real Cassiopeia. The real Cassiopeia is Penny all along. Penny specializes in evolutions. If you don't know what an evolution is, it's pretty much the Eevee and their evolutions. Penny starts out with an Umbreon, a Close Combat from Annihilate, one-shots the Umbreon. Flareon gets sent out, I keep in Annihilate and one-shot the Flareon with Earthquake. I bring in Low Kick so he can have some screen time, but I really don't want to talk about the moves I used. The Vaporeon just kept using Baby Doll Eyes, and as I used either Sucker Punch or First Impression, dealing no damage. Low Kick's faint, so I bring back in Annihilate and finish off the Vaporeon with a Close Combat. We keep in Annihilate as Penny sends out Jolteon. Jolteon with Jolteon Speed gets a Thunder off before it faints to a super effective Earthquake. I switch into Talonflame as the enemy switches into Leafeon. Leafeon gets off a Baby Doll Eyes and survives a Flare Blitz, but another Flare Blitz finishes off Leafeon. I switch back into Annihilate for Penny's final Pokemon, Sylveon. I get a critical hit Close Combat, so 2 Close Combats finishes off the Terra Fairy Sylveon. I finally finished all the story quests, so we can now progress to the Area 0. Area 0 is in the middle of the map and contains strong Pokemon in it. We are tasked to go to the Area 0 to find Professor Sada and give her a book. We glide down the summit on top of Koraidon and find ourselves in Area 0. We are tasked to unlock four of the locks at each station in Area 0 to unlock the main laboratory. As I unlock the gate to the main laboratory where the time machine is, we get into a fight with a bunch of ancient Pokemon. I quickly finish them all out and head inside. We chat with the professor, who turns out to be a robot, and are asked by the robot Sada to destroy the time machine in the main laboratory. As we place the Scarlet book on the pedestal to shut down the time machine, it goes into defense protocol and we must fight the robot Sada, who has all ancient Pokemon. Let the Pokemon battle commence! Pokemon music activates! I start out with Annihilate and AI Sada starts out with Slitherwing. I then switch out into Talonflame and eat a lunge from Slitherwing with Talonflame. Next turn I use Acrobatics, which one-shots the Slitherwing, and now AI Sada sends out Fluttermane. I switch into Annihilate and one-shot the Fluttermane with Rage Fist. Next Pokemon is Screamtail. I use Rage Fist twice to defeat the Screamtail, AI Starter then sends out Brute Bonnet, which is the ancient version of, I think, Amogus. A close combat just one-shots this guy. Sandy Shocks is the next Pokemon, I think. I think I should have used Earthquake here, but I end up using 2 close combats before taking it out, but Sandy Shocks does some decent damage to me with Earth Power. Her final Pokemon is Roaring Moon, one of the most sickest looking Pokemon to come out of like this generation in my opinion. It genuinely looks awesome. I bring out Iron Butt to use Ice Spinner, but Iron Butt gets one-shotted by Stone Edge. I now send out Annihilate, get my Quick Claw to proc gladly, and get off on Outrage to one-shot the Roaring Moon, winning the fight. After some more story, the defense system goes into Hyper Protocol. This fight has to be fought with Koraidon, who is not a shiny. So this is one of the two fights I cannot use a shiny throughout the playthrough. But since this fight is basic and this will be the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It took me quite a while to make. I've been spending countless hours on the commentary, writing out the scripts, editing the videos. Like these videos do take some time to make for me because even though I don't feel like my commentary is great, I do try my best at it. Because I stutter quite a bit. It's something I'm trying to learn not to do. So I'm going through that. And I'm trying to upload at least once every month or two because I feel like the content that I do does take a while to make. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day and peace.